Take a trip beyond your backyard. Compare your way there.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back. This is the Blu-XPerience. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are finally back, and we're coming back with a banger. Obviously, we got the homie EP.21. Say hello to the people.
Wow, we're actually live. Yes, we're live. This is not recorded. This is not pre-recorded, guys. We're live. Let me take a sip of the red stripe to prove it to you guys. What's going on, Blue? It's been a few weeks. No, it's been about a month, man. We were on official hiatus. Now we're back live in living color, and we're going to be doing it again. We have a whole bunch of guests lined up for you guys, and we figure we'll start off with a bang today.
Yes,
so, Blue,
yes.
Starting off for you, man?
With the legend. And I say legend in the sense that when I first started doing flight simming, I was watching this guy's tutorials to teach me how to fly literally almost every plane. So he's basically like my teacher, my mentor. He doesn't even know this, but the legend Q8Pilot. Say what's up, man.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thank you for the warm introduction, Blue. I definitely didn't know that. XP, hello, my friend. I am very glad to be here.
You know what it is, right? It's the voice, Blue. It's the voice. You know, Blue stole my intro, by the way, because I was going to say this is the man who got me into flight simming and got me through the dark days of not knowing what to do and doing a YouTube search and finding a guy named Q8 has got a tutorial on everything. And I heard that voice pop up. So Q8, thank you so much for being on the show. We absolutely appreciate you waking up so early in Kuwait to do the show. You guys have no idea how early it is in Kuwait right now, believe you me. So thank you so much for being on the show. Absolutely appreciate it, man. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It is my absolute pleasure to be here, and really thank you guys for the warm introduction. I really appreciate it. I didn't know that I was, I was providing you with all this help, Blue and XP, but very glad to hear that.
I think let's just take a second to kind of like, and again, you know, I'm not gonna fanboy you. I'm just saying, like, seriously, like I'm thinking back to when I first started and when I was getting into X-Plane, when I was getting into flight sims and trying to learn how to fly certain aircraft, and you know, I'm one of 95% of people who don't like to read the manuals. You know what I mean? And so, you know, you and a few other creators were out there doing your thing, making tutorial videos, doing live streams, things like that. And I always knew that I could trust your reviews. I could always trust your tutorials because you got straight to the point. You were honest. You weren't biased. And those are some of the cues and kind of the inspiration I got from you for even my channel. And I know a lot of other people got that too. So the reason I want to kind of say this and kind of just really make this apparent is because I know that I'm not the only one who feels this way. I know that all the people who subscribe to your channel, who follow you, who've watched your tutorials, whether they believe it or not, people like you. who are creators or on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, who are making content and tutorials on how to fly these planes, you are helping so much, because I've been a noob at so many games. Like, I tell people this all the time, like, I'm a big simmer just in general. Like, flight sim is not my only thing. I may only stream that, but I play so many different sims, and so having a YouTuber, a creator, or a person to show you how to do these things step by step is so important, because it saves you so much headache. And so just thank you, man. Thank you.
I'm most humbled.
Oh yeah, definitely. So we got to get into the questions right away. We have to grill you now and find out. We have to find out the history of Q8, because just like Blue, I came on the scene maybe 3-4 years ago, and of course, any flight simmer who really wants to do it, they go ahead and start looking people. As Blue says, we don't read the manual. We want to look up and see who's done it before. And here you are. And you had a bunch of tutorials out already. How long ago did you get started in flight sim, and what brought you to this hobby per se? Yeah, how long have you been doing it?
I've been doing it for quite some time. I think I started the very first video, I think I posted in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So just under 7 years now.
Wow.
And the reason I started doing it, and I think my very first video was just an airsoft Airbus landing at New Doha International in Qatar. And I was so proud of myself that I actually created this video and I posted it. And it was, to date, I just smile when I look at that video. But I had immense passion for aviation. I've always liked the looks of an aircraft flying up in the air. And so from a very young age, I really loved looking at airplanes. And when the opportunity presented itself, and I started, I left simming for quite a while. And when I came back to it, I felt that I have sufficient knowledge that I think I want to share with the community. And what better way to do this than to actually create videos on YouTube? And I think I've got hammered by a lot of people when I first started. My very first few tutorials, I believe one was in X-Plane 10, you were able to edit the maps, and you could actually move the localizer from like a specialized window. And I remember just getting hammered by people because I did the tutorial on the localizer at Innsbruck. And at Innsbruck, the localizer is actually not aligned with the runway for a reason.
Oh.
So, and it was in real life, it's actually tilted. It's not exactly aligned with the runway. And I showed the example there, and I got hammered for it. And it was a funny occasion. But then I did the, I believe the X-Plane 10 complete settings guide. And that was probably the start of me doing tutorials and reviews on YouTube, and really going for content creation as, I would say, a formal hobby. And that video, I got so many hits. I was actually traveling with the family right after I posted the video. And I said, yes, I think I am adding value. I think people are saying that they're learning something from the video. They've improved their experience in this sim. I'm going to continue, despite all the negative comments I got from the previous one.
Oh my God!
So that was the start. Really, that's what got me into flight simulation. I've been a tutor back in college, so I used to teach mathematics. I love teaching people stuff, whatever the case may be. So there is a passion for teaching. I've always wanted to be an instructor, and there is also passion for aviation. So those combined, I think, gave me the opportunity to become a content creator on YouTube, to sum it all up.
That's pretty cool.
So basically, you had a rude intro into the community by editing an offset ILS to make it straight. And you immediately saw what flight simmers can be to each other. Oh my God. But I'm glad that you stuck with it, and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to let this hurt me. I'm just going to keep going forward. And there's a couple of ones here I see that you had about basic VR navigation, but the first one I see here is 6.5 years ago, was how to create custom wing views in X-Plane. You know that people still ask about that to this day.
Yeah,
They do.
Yes, they do. But that one has a lot of hits on it. So you are right that the value that you brought to the community is something else. Was there any passion for flying yourself personally before you even started doing the tutorial stuff?
Oh yeah, so
Real world?
I've done some real world flying back in the U.S. When I was a college student. I've done a lot of flights actually. If I recall correctly, there was a Captain Lee. He was a retired military pilot for the U.S. Air Force, and he actually I used to fly with him a lot out of Fresno. We used to go to fly around the area in California, and it was a lot of fun. And that's where I think it was my first experience flying in a real aircraft was with Captain Lee, and it was just amazing being up in the air and being totally free of everything. And the sightseeing in California is very nice. I just love the mountainous terrain in the area. We used to fly over the Yosemite National Park and that area and the San Joaquin Valley, which was really, really cool. And then, of course, after I came back in Kuwait, unfortunately, we do not have aviation is not really open for anyone. You have to really be a certified pilot with one of the airlines to be able to access an aircraft. So it's not something that is accessible here. But every time I would fly, I would have a vacation with the family. We fly over to the UK. I would charter one of those, small Pipers and go for a flight. It's good fun, and it's good to every once in a while have a feel for the real thing. Just really battle the winds and just get a feel for a real aircraft. Gives you a lot of perspective, even back in the sim, where you can tell the difference between flying the real thing and flying in the simulator. So definitely some experience there with the with real world flying.
Wow. Actually want to ask you, because I've noticed in a lot of your videos you've done flying in like the Pacific Northwest, California, a lot like in the sim, and I was like, what connection does he have with the States? Because I mean, you are a Q8 Pilot, right? Which I assume you're in Kuwait, and which is a funny story because I didn't even catch on to that wordplay until like maybe less than a year ago. I was like, whoa, my mind was freaking blown. I was like, Q8, wait, Kuwait, oh my god. So yeah, anyways, so that's just a side note. I didn't notice that till then, but I was like, because you fly out of I've seen like some of your recent videos were out of the Pacific Northwest. So like, what brought you to the States? Was it for college, university, or how did that work out?
Yeah, so I did my college years in the States. I went to Fresno State in Fresno. Wow. I was there from 93 until 2000. So I did work after I graduated from college for a few years before I finally decided to come back home. But you see, Blue, my best years were in the States. My transformation maybe from a teenager into adulthood has really been in the States. Wow. And it's a place that is very dear to my heart. I made a lot of very good friends. Some of them, unfortunately, are not with us today, but some are. I'm still in contact with a lot of them. But yeah, this period of my life was probably the best period. I'm very fond of all the memories of all the people that I've met there. And those people, the way they touched me, I think is truly who I am today. Wow. So I am really thankful to those who have touched my life in many different ways back in the States. They really helped me become who I am today.
Wow. Wow. It's just so fascinating to hear that part of your history. Never even considered or thought about it, that you were over this side of the world, just growing up, doing things in college and school and stuff. So, I don't know if that's what it is, but it something translates in the way you explain. As you said, you're a tutor, but the way you explain things to people in your tutorials, I think, is what keeps people coming back.
Yeah.
You're straight to the point. The way you use language, basically the English language, is the way you use it is no fluff, no extra. If I watch your tutorial, I literally don't have to fast forward it. I could just watch it. I get exactly what I need. I'm in, I'm out, and it works. So now that explains the fact that you've lived in both parts of the world, and your background to it. So that is tremendous, man. We absolutely definitely enjoy it. I'm actually here on your YouTube channel. I went back to the first video you ever did, and you are right. It is the landing in Hamad International 7 years ago, the A319. And I'm looking at it going, Prepared 3D was pretty back in the day. You had the Burj Khalifa up here. You had X-Plane. And which sim did you start with? What was your first simulator? Let me ask you that.
The first simulator I've ever used was on a Commodore. It was an Amiga Commodore. That was very, very long time ago, even long before Flight Simulator 98 came out.
Wow.
And it was actually, the nice thing about Amiga Commodore is that it had very, very nice graphics. At the time. Of course, for its time, it was very advanced, but it was the whole computer was 1 meg of RAM. So you can imagine how good it was.
Wow.
So that really got me into flight sim. When Microsoft Flight Simulator 98 came out, I jumped on it immediately. And I was very happy with what it did. And then, of course, I remained the course of the FSX route until I think we came with the FSX, the accelerated version, whatever you call it.
I think
then
that was
P3D
FSX,
came out, so
right? Or no?
Yeah. So the very first one was on the Amiga Commodore, but I've pretty much lived through the entire lifespan of FSX.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, 98 was actually my first ever flight sim, FSX 98. Or
yeah,
FS
it was a good sim for its time. Yeah.
Yeah, the Learjet classic.
Yeah.
Nah, I didn't join up until X-Plane 9-ish into 10, and I only had a MacBook, not even a MacBook Pro.
Wow.
I was never a PC person, and I had a MacBook that barely pulled about 7 FPS, but I was flying, and you couldn't tell me differently. I just started to wonder why all my 30-minute flights were taking an hour. I didn't know that the frames were dropping with the time in X-Plane at the time. But, that was my first intro. But as soon as I got a PC, man, I started looking into all these things and how to mod, how to do this and how to do that. But you've pretty much stuck with doing your tutorials for a very, very long time. We're talking about 7 years now. How do you keep going with these things? What's the passion that you have to keep you up and, introducing new things to the people? What's the main drive for you?
So the main driver, I think, is my personal experience. So sometimes I'm like in the sim and it's like, how do I do this? Or why is this not working? And that's when I actually start experimenting. And, I would probably do like what most people do is go to Google and Google it. And, I get to see on forums a lot of threads that are unanswered. So I would see someone asking about, I got this problem with ortho and it does this and it does that. How do I do this? How do I do that?
True.
So when I see a thread that ends without a proper conclusion, I feel, I probably can add value there because now I've done a lot of research and now I can fix this. So let me show people how to fix this. So I think this is really what drives me is when I encounter an issue, I know that I'm probably not the only one. If I can find a solution for it, sometimes I would do a tutorial on it because it's sometimes not very straightforward, and people may find it a little difficult to do it. So I then take things and I try to simplify them in my mind. I say, okay, so out of all this, 5-6 page article, all you need to do is 1, 2, 3. So let me do a video of that. That's normally how my thinking process works.
Now it works because you, as I was saying earlier, you get to the meat of what everybody's looking for. Yeah. Not necessarily the shortcut, but yes, the shortcut, to get it up and running. And you would be the go-to person to see. Let me see what Q8 did with it. He's gonna. What I've considered is that you're gonna go over it thoroughly, very thorough, but not so much in the weeds that you get lost. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Yeah, the necessary things, so you've been able to strike the balance between what's necessary and what's not important to get stuff up and running. Now, I'm very disappointed, though, and I mentioned this earlier before the stream started, that you actually changed your ortho tutorial video recently. I haven't watched the new one because every time I fly X-Plane and the ortho comes up, hey, can you make a tutorial? And I'm like, nope, I can't, but Q8Pilot has an ortho tutorial. It's the same one I've even referred back to when I changed computers to learn how to set it up again on a new computer.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I've used it to set it up on 3 computers now because once I set it one time, the way you demonstrate it, I forget it. But I see that you went back and changed it. What was the changes you made to the new video that you made for ortho? What was the update?
So I haven't. I think both videos are still there, but the new video is the new version of Ortho for XP. So there's a new version that came out, and when I downloaded the newer version, I found that it's a lot easier because it gives you a lot more control over the zoom level. So what you can actually do with it is you can go to the airport area, set the zoom to level 19, but then you can do the rest of the map level 16, where the aircraft is at much higher altitude and you don't really need, a higher resolution. And this is something that was extremely difficult in the previous version of Ortho for XP, where in the new version it's kind of just really no-brainer. It's very easy to do. You need to see how it's done the first time, and then you're good to go. So that is, I think both tutorials are still there. If you type in Q8Pilot Ortho for XP, you get both of them. One is really old, and one is, I think, 4 months ago.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to need to check that new one out because I don't have the old one anymore. It's on an old computer, and I haven't added any ortho since that. So I'll check it out because I used to use that same zoom level trick like my base tiling around. But if it's easier to do now, that'd be so much more of a help to get done. One question though, when did you actually start live streaming? When did you start live streaming?
Oh, that's a tough question. I don't actually recall when I started, but I used to get a lot of comments, why don't you live stream? Why don't you live stream? And at first, it was a little intimidating for me to actually do that, simply because of 2 things. One, I've never done it before. And 2, the internet connection in Kuwait wasn't sufficient for me to do it. Simply because the streaming servers are not anywhere near this region, so there was a lag. I tried a couple of times, I think, on Twitch, and I wasn't successful. And I said, just leave it and let me just do recorded videos. But then I upgraded the internet connectivity at my residence, and I said, okay, let me try and do it now. And at first, I remember the first live stream I did, I was literally sweating. But then I found it to be, I started feeling more comfortable doing the live stream. And, I love the live interaction. And I think the more I did it, the more I realized, it's easier actually to do than a video where, you need to record the video and edit the video. Where in the live stream, and by the way, the nice thing about videos is you can edit out, if you sneezed, for example, you could just remove it.
Yeah.
You can't do that on a live stream, but I think it's very rewarding to have the interaction with people, for one. And I found it to be, because of the time constraint I have, I felt that it's easier for me to just say, all right, I'm going to stream from 9 p.m. to maybe 10:30, 11 p.m., and then I'm just going to go to sleep and I'm done. All you have to do is the thumbnail, set the, publish the video, and you're gone. You're done. So I'm not exactly sure when I started live streaming, but maybe a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe that would be my best bet.
So
which sim was it? Sorry, Blue.
No, go ahead.
I think I did. I think the first one was X-Plane. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Makes sense. Yeah, I was gonna ask. So, what you mentioned that you were like sweating your first live stream. What was it that you were so nervous about? Like, what was so intimidating about getting in the live stream? And I think your answer will probably help some people in the chat who may be thinking about getting into live streaming.
Yeah. So one thing is the you're afraid of, for example, doing a really bad landing, right, and not really pleasing people, not really giving them a good show. I wasn't also sure of, sometimes you tend to pause too long. Sometimes you get distractions. Like my son would walk in and he wants something. And then I'm not really sure what to do. Do I pause the stream? Do I mute my mic? Or, it's very frustrating, when you're not experienced in live streaming. So I think all of these conditions would really make you feel a little intimidated. And I think I read a lot about, how do you do live streaming? Make sure you're in a quiet area. Make sure that, you're not thirsty. You have a bottle of water right next to you, because you're going to be pinned onto your chair for 2 hours or so. So you have to be comfortable doing it. You have to do it at the right times. It needs to be quiet. And my kid is he's all over the place when he's awake. So I normally pick a time after they're all gone to bed. So I think a little bit of personal things, a little bit of the family situation. All of it just contributes to, feeling a little intimidated to do the stream. And I think a lot of it is my personality, Blue. I'm a perfectionist by nature, and I like to do everything with quality. And that really puts a lot of pressure on me, because I want everything to be perfect. And I know things will never be perfect, but I strive to put on a good show for people, something I feel that it's going to be insightful, it's going to be useful for them. It's not just about me going on the stream, but it's me going on the stream and providing value for the community. And but after a while, I guess you get over it.
No, you're actually, I don't know if we are the same age or close, but you're speaking my language, because, that's how I felt when I started. Like, all right, I'm representing myself. I'm trying to be entertaining, but I'm trying to be, put on the best show possible, right? Speak properly, sit up straight, no noise in the background, no disturbances and all that. And then I realized that, okay, I make a mistake and I sneeze or a cough, and then people are still watching. Like, oh, really? You guys are still here? And then you get into it. I've literally broken all the rules that I set out when I just started, And every now and again, I have to catch myself and go, okay, you can't do that on stream. That's just not appropriate. You know what I mean? You can't let it get to that point. But I see your professionalism, and I get it. I understand exactly what you're saying about remaining professional on stream. But, it comes across good, though. The way you've managed to do it comes across really good. So keep it up. Absolutely. We appreciate it.
I was going to say, too, when you mentioned about the perfection, being a perfectionist, and I could definitely tell that, because as you said, you started off doing only, just videos. Like, you were pre-recording stuff, you were editing it. I'm sure you were editing so many things out. You're editing out your bad landings, all of that. And so to come from, because like you created a brand for yourself, right? For over these years, you created a brand for yourself. You're like, all right, this is kind of how I want people to perceive me, right? But the truth is, that's what an edited video can cut out so many details right, of yourself and of
Oh,
the
yeah.
content you've created. So when you get to a live stream, like they get what they see, right? Like there's no hiding a bad landing, there's no hiding not knowing how to do a procedure, like all that little stuff. If, for example, like, oh, you could say I'm gonna do a full flight, right, and edit out the descent part, right, and just land.
Yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
people would know whether or not you actually know how to fly a star, an arrival, if you even know how to use vertical speed. You know what I mean? Like those little details that you could easily edit out and still make an enjoyable video to watch. And so when it comes to making a live stream, all that, you're on the spot. Like you said, you're putting on a show. If it's your first time, you don't know if people are going to enjoy watching you longer than 30 minits. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely feel you on that.
True.
I recently, it's funny, that you mentioned that. I recently ran a poll on the community tab, asking people what would make you never want to miss a Q8Pilot stream, and what would make you watch it till the end.
Wow.
And surprisingly, the poll result shows that most people want to see full flights with full ATC. So that was something that I've been doing offline. I haven't really, for the reasons I mentioned, I haven't done it in a live stream. The workload is much heavier with having an online ATC, and I didn't want to mess things up, so I always kept it in an offline mode. But I think this is what the community wants, and if that's what the community wants, that's what I've got to do.
Here I say that the audience is very sadistic in the terms of they really and truly want to see you sweat. They want to see you handle everything. No, it's true. I believe it. Sometimes I think they get a kick out of an emergency that wasn't even planned.
Yes, they do. 100%. 100%.
They come alive. No, Geo said it, no gear landing equals shenanigans. It's true. It's like, look, you have established yourself, and this is the key. If you guys are listening out there in the audience, Q8 has established himself for putting out quality work year after year after year after year. So he's not able to go live, and I think you're able to now go live, do ATC, and mess up from time to time, and you're going to be okay because you've already proven yourself. If you're a new person that's just coming, I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, I agree.
You see what I'm saying? I wouldn't recommend it. You have established yourself in the community as, hey, here's my body of work, so you know how I work, but let's just do this live thing here. I would love to see it, by the way. I would watch one of your streams with ATC.
I would too.
I definitely would love to see it, but that's it's funny what audiences want and react to, I think. But let me go on here. Let me shift the topic a little bit, and let me just say, FSX, P3D, and now Microsoft Flight Sim. You've been in the sim game for so long. As of today, 2020, what are your thoughts on these three sims? Future, past, and present. What are your thoughts on these three simulators? I really love to know.
Oh, that's a territory that normally I try avoiding, but that's a good question. All right, so first of all, when I was first introduced to the community, I came across as an X-Plane guy. So they call me the X-Plane guy. And I'm actually very proud to have been associated with with X-Plane and with Laminar Research. And some people actually thought at some point that I've worked for Laminar Research.
Wow.
Because I used to praise the simulator so much. I used to make a lot of videos on it. But of course, I have no association with Laminar or with any other company for that matter. Now, FSX or P3 later on P3D, Lockheed Martin, is I think an incredible platform. And for its time, I think it was there for a very long time. I think the developer community has developed so many add-ons for FSX and Prepared over the years. Some are outstanding. And of course, I'd have to mention things like PMDG. And, PMDG has created, the Boeing fleet for FSX and Prepared. And those are, until this day, I think, until X-Plane came about, I think were dominating really the study level market, if you will, for flight simulation. FSX, it has, in my view, has died. It's gone. There is still very few people using it. P3D is alive, but there is a declining demand for the simulator. And I think this is mainly due to the fact that you have two very good alternatives, such as Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and X-Plane 11 and soon to be X-Plane 12. Now, there are, unless Lockheed Martin comes up with something significant, I think P3D is eventually going to die. It's going to go away unless they really improve their graphics engine. I spent a lot more time with P3D, configuring things and changing settings to suit, for example, the airports that I'm flying to and from, than actually the time I spend enjoying and flying the simulator. And I think I'm not alone there. I think a lot of people have this issue. But for its time, when P3D was there, when Microsoft Flight Simulator wasn't there, I will tell you that it was a superb flight sim platform. In fact, it is used by some schools for real-world training. But the same thing goes for X-Plane. Now, that is, an area that I have a soft side for. X-Plane is, it is my preferred simulator. And I think people know that. And I do not publicly say that I prefer it because I do enjoy all simulators for different reasons, but X-Plane remained for the duration of the past 7 years to be my to-go flight simulator. The reason is it is very easy to set up, one. Two, it's got a very accurate flight model by account of real-world pilots, which my uncle happens to be one. And he actually tried both simulators, P3D and X-Plane, and he tells me that X-Plane is more realistic in terms of the flight model. The eye candy in P3D and in Microsoft Flight Simulator is much better. Now, actually, nothing comes close to MSFS in terms of the scenery, in terms of the depiction of the world, the depiction and representation of meteorological data. All of that good stuff is definitely, Microsoft wins there. But in terms of what X-Plane in the last year, if you look at the study level add-ons that came for X-Plane, it has really established itself as one of the leading flight simulation platforms, both for entertainment, for us simmers to enjoy, but also for real-world training. Many very high-quality add-ons came, and you can see the developers have learned something in the course of developing software for X-Plane. They're creating such high-fidelity add-ons that, I'm just amazed. I don't know if you've seen the recently released Hot Start Challenger 650.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that is just amazing. The tools, A340, the 742 Classic by Felis, the Q4XP by FlyJSim, the SR22, again by, I believe, TorqueSim. Just really amazing add-ons for X-Plane. The Airfoil Lab system, let's not forget that one.
Yep.
So many just very high-quality add-ons. So today, I think, and of course, we've seen the trailers of X-Plane 12. So in terms of the past, P3D was the king. FSX P3D was the king for a very long time with a much bigger user base. X-Plane then started coming up and becoming a serious contender for the platform. When MSFS came, I think P3D and FSX started phasing out, and now the two main sims for civil aviation is X-Plane and MSFS, with probably more user base for Microsoft Flight Simulator than X-Plane, while the growth for Microsoft Flight Simulator is much bigger because obviously it's a newer platform, and then the introduction of Xbox has definitely added to that. I think Laminar still remains very strong in terms of growth and in terms of the value that the platform offers to the community. I think moving forward, future, I think both are going to remain as sims used by the flight sim community. I think we will continue to have, all these fights in the comment section of videos that, compare the two sims. But I think the community is so fortunate today that we have a company like Asobo Studios and Microsoft that developed Microsoft Flight Simulator, and all the developers such as PMDG creating excellent add-ons for this new flight simulation platform. And also the fact that we have Laminar Research, and I have a lot of respect for the people at Laminar Research, because Laminar is a very small software company as opposed to a gaming studio. And if you look at the difference between the two, the terms of resources, the capabilities, Laminar is much smaller, but smaller only in the size and maybe number of people. But in terms of what they offer the community is just outstanding. And the blade element theory and what they use in the sim is something that makes, I think, X-Plane very unique. And with X-Plane 12 and all the trailer footage that I've seen and some of the screenshot that I've seen, I can tell you that we're in for something very, very special. So moving forward, we're going to have two excellent high-fidelity platforms to enjoy with some very high-quality add-ons. And I think we as a community will be able to enjoy both and learn from both. That would be my concluding remark on that.
I think that was
very
well said.
Show's over. I'll wrap it up. We're done. We have gotten the most succinct answer to that question that we would love to say, but we've never said it before. We didn't know how to put it into words. Q8, I mean, that sums it up for a couple of things. Blue has been saying that, I've been saying it, but the survey that came out from Navigraph. Yeah, back to everything that you just said, and the way you've explained it, this, to me, sounds like that is the future. The only question is that, is there room for two simulators going forward at this point? With all that X-Plane has and so forth, is there room for two sims?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at the user base and if you look at the flight simulation genre in general, I think there's a lot more people, coming into the hobby. I think it's becoming more accessible. I think a lot more people are using it maybe for entertainment. It's like what it feels like to flying a plane. In fact, my son is really big on infinite flight, so he's got it loaded on his iPad and he flies. And I think. Yeah, go ahead, Blue.
No, I'm just saying, shouts to infinite flight.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely room for two, and not just two, but maybe three simulators. I will tell you what I mean by that. I think if you're more of a civil aviator and you want to, you're very serious about maybe flying, maybe you're going to go to X-Plane because of the flight model. If you want to have fun and fly for recreation and fly with your friends and have fun with your friends, then I would probably pick MSFS. VFR flying also in MSFS because of its really brilliant scenery. But then if you're a combat pilot, then you'd probably turn into DCS.
Oh, yeah.
So I think all three simulators has something very valuable to offer the community. And I think you will continue to see people probably switching back and forth between the simulators. There will be people who will use exclusively one or the other. But there's definitely room for not just two, but I think three simulators in the future.
So let's talk future, and we're kind of just all speculating now. But I mean, you got me excited after your speech about the history of flight sim in the future. I was like, man, yeah, that was so well said. But like, let's think. This is what I want to think about, right? And that is X-Plane 12, right? Let's talk about the future. X-Plane 12. This could be. We don't know when this is coming out, but we know this could be our future. X-Plane 12, which we've heard great things about, we're excited about. But let's think about Microsoft, not in its present state, But let's think about Microsoft after PMDG 737, after the Phoenix A320, after some of these study level in quotation, and some of these high fidelity aircraft that we've all been waiting for on Microsoft Flight Sim. We've all been begging for that, right? So why would we beg for all these great high fidelity planes on Microsoft Flight Sim if we're not going to play Microsoft Flight Sim? So my question is, thinking about Microsoft Flight Sim after we've gotten 3 or 4 high fidelity planes, how will that stand up against X-Plane 12 and what they've been promising, plus the addition of all the amazing add-ons that we already have for 11 that we know will convert over? What do you think? How do you think it's going to match up?
I think it's going to be very tough to speculate as to what will happen, but I will say this based on my experience with PMDG products, for example. I know there is a huge base of people that would probably immediately turn to Microsoft Flight Simulator when those aircraft are out. So I think from experience, I think X-Plane will lose some market share once those aircraft are available in Microsoft Flight Simulator because of its high fidelity representation of the world. And I think Laminar is going to have a tough time bringing those guys back to the platform unless they provide something that is, again, wow. It's got to have the wow factor. Now, with X-Plane 12, I think they fix a lot of the things that we as users used to complain about. Things like the weather, ATC has been improved. But people want to see, for example, when they come into land at, let's say, Oxford, London, Oxford, they want to see the grass.
Yes.
They want to see that little river. They want to see that little house, which, they spent the night with their friends at some 5 years ago. It relates to your real world experience. When I fly in Microsoft Flight Simulator and I fly over, my area where I live and I see my house, I chuckle with joy. So, look, that's my house. And so I think that part of the experience is something that we will probably not get with X-Plane and maybe in the foreseeable future. I think it will take a long time for that to happen, if it happens at all. And so I think there is a little bit of an edge. Once you have PMDG of the world in Microsoft Flight Simulator, I'm certain that X-Plane will lose some market share. But I know also that when X-Plane 12 comes out, there's maybe with a fewer percentage, but MSFS would also lose some percentage there. And it's going to be very hard to speculate how much the difference is going to be. But my hunch would be is more people are going to probably turn to Microsoft Flight Simulator than those are going to go to X-Plane. Or X-Plane is going to lose more to MSFS than MSFS is going to lose to X-Plane. That would be my take on it, just based on my own experience and what people talk about in the forums.
2 things. I know you work for a Laminar Q8. Don't tell me you don't. If I was saying on yesterday's stream, I was flying X-Plane coming into a particular airport, and the senior developer, I used to tell my guys, I said, listen, what X-Plane is missing is what Microsoft have down low. They have this tree density. When you're coming into an airport, you really feel it. You feel the land, you feel the speed, you feel everything because there's trees. X-Plane 12 needs to have a very high tree density on the ground below a certain altitude. It really does. If it doesn't have it, it's going to miss the mark completely. Because when a developer puts that in the scenery and you're coming in, it looks almost just like Microsoft Flight Sim, even though X-Plane doesn't have ortho. If you have that tree density that covers a hill and a mountain, like I was flying in South America last week, and part of it that blew me away in Microsoft was just how nice the trees look. It looked like you're in the Caribbean, you look like you're over a jungle. It looks so thick. X-Plane needs that. But I am actually looking forward to, and how about you guys? PMDG, as you say, is like the premier Boeing person in simulator. I can't wait for the PMDG 737 to drop so I can compare it to the Zibo 737.
Same.
system-wise and flight model-wise. I want to see head-to-head what a Zibo and a PMDG is going to feel like. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know if sim limitations from Microsoft or PMDG is going to work around that or what. I don't know about you guys. What do you guys think about a head-to-head, just feeling these two airplanes, back to back in the different sims? I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, for sure. The only thing
That's really interesting.
One thing I always thought about Microsoft Flight Sims, I always felt that it was too easy to fly and to land. You know what I mean? Like on X-Plane, you feel like you really have to roll your sleeves up when you land. You know what I mean? You have to actually work for it. You have that satisfaction that, oh yeah, that was a great landing. But in Microsoft Flight Sim, when you get a great landing, you're like, I mean, it was in the live stream, you're like, oh yeah, it was good. Thank you, whatever. But in reality, if you just were playing X-Plane the day before, a few days before, you can kind of feel that difference, and you don't get the same satisfaction. So I'm kind of wondering with some of these, not just PMDG, but some of these different high fidelity airliners, are you gonna get a better physics flight model? Like, for example, and I'm always talking about this brand, the Piper P828 from Just Flight is still to this day my favorite aircraft on Microsoft Flight Sim. They've done some great things with it. I'm not sure how you feel about it, Q8, but when you land that plane, it does not feel like you're landing a typical Microsoft Flight Sim plane. It felt like you have to actually put in some almost real world landing knowledge on landing a low wing G8 plane, so I get a really good sense of satisfaction when landing that plane. I'm wondering if I'm gonna get the same thing when landing a PMDG, a Phoenix, whatever.
Absolutely. I think I agree with both of you. I think just from experience, the Zibo Mod is by far the very best Boeing 737 available for a flight sim platform, period. If you look at the development of the aircraft and all the updates that have been integrated into it, and there is a real world 737 pilot that, flies it frequently, and he really praises the aircraft, and he says that this is as close as it gets to the real thing. The thing about Zibo is that it's constantly being updated. It's, issues are being ironed out and fixed. And I think today it's gotten to the point where it is a study level simulation of the 737. I am fortunate enough to have also the entire fleet of PMDG aircraft for P3D. And I've gotten the 737NG for P3D version 5. And I did a little bit of a comparison between the two a couple of weeks ago. I was actually going to do a video of it, and then I kind of got busy with stuff. But what I do find is there are things in the PMDG 737 version that are not available in the Zibo Mod. As far as the system simulation. Now, the way the aircraft flies by account of real-world pilots, the Zibo Mod is a lot closer to the real thing than the PMDG aircraft. They're both, by the way, close. So they're both fairly accurately represent the flight model of the 737 in the flight sim. But the Zibo flies closer to reality than the PMDG counterpart. But in terms of the system simulation, there are just things that you can simulate or configure in the PMDG version that are just not available until this day in the Zibo Mod. So I think it's a very difficult comparison. And unless I think we bring two 737 pilots who've used both versions enough and tell them, all right, you are real world pilots, and one will test the Zibo, one will test the PMDG. Come and share your notes, and then come and tell the community, what do you think? Yeah. Which one is more accurate in terms? I think that is going to be needed moving forward. I don't think any flight simmer today who is not a real world pilot is going to be able to provide the community with sort of an accurate comparison between the two.
Having never owned a PMDG product myself, because X-Plane has only been my only sim until Microsoft comes out, what are the things that are in the PMDG 7.3 that's not in the Zibo? Is it a system thing, or is it like GSX integration, or what is it?
Oh no, it's more of a system thing. So
Ah.
when you go to the simulation, there are like 12 pages in the MCD, in the FMS. There are 12 pages in the menu where you can go and configure even the autopilot siren. You can go and configure it. You
Wow.
can add a lot of
Wow.
different. Yeah, it's quite detailed. And I think also PMDG, when you load up their livery manager, you can download, for example, for the 747, for example, you can download, I think for all of them, you can download the airline properly, the configuration is properly aligned to the actual airline. So this is how KLM flies their 737 with this registration number.
Wow.
So it's got all the system configured exactly like the airline. And that is something I have a lot of appreciation for. And I think for this reason, PMDG has been very successful with their entire fleet of Boeing aircraft. Zibo Mod is, again, just really one of the highest fidelity aircraft available for a flight sim platform, and it's totally free. So that, in terms of the value for flight simulation, if it comes to that, then definitely Zibo gives you more value because it's free. You don't have to, it doesn't cost you anything. Whereas PMDG is quite an expensive add-on to have.
Premium product.
Oh man, I'm so looking forward to this matchup. You don't know. I can't wait to fly that PMDG for the first time in Microsoft Flight Sim.
So that being said, we're talking about. I feel like we're talking about another level of simulation, of high fidelity, of study level in this Hot Start Challenger 650. Where does that fall into the mix, even comparing it to these airliners from PMDG and P3D aircraft?
The Hot Start Challenger 650 is by far the single most detailed, high fidelity, study level simulation of an aircraft that I have ever seen, period. I haven't seen anything as detailed as this aircraft. So really a job very well done by Hot Start. It's an aircraft that the integration also of the FBO with the aircraft is the full experience. I haven't seen anything like it before, and I think there's a lot of work that has gone into modeling, programming that aircraft. I think it sets the bar very high. It is a little less than some of the PMDG add-ons. So I think the 747 cost more, or the 777 I think cost more. It's like $130 something for the PMDG 777.
Jeez.
Yeah, but wow. It is. It's quite expensive. But I think the Hot Start really sets the bar too high, and it also tells other developers this can be done. So this level of fidelity is achievable in a flight sim, and it's all to our benefit. I simply think today the Challenger 650 is simply the most accurate aircraft or representation of the full experience of an aircraft in a flight sim. It's brilliant. It's just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. It blew me away, and even after it's had 3 or 4 updates now. And even just after the first update, I was like, bro, what else can you do to this plane? And then he just keeps adding things and making it better. And like, we're really just at the start. Like, he wants to do so much more to it, which is amazing. I think it shows when a developer has a passion for a project, it just shines through. And I think that's what's happening with the Challenger. And a lot of other planes have had the same kind of shine to it. We can tell the developer really loved this. They weren't just doing it for the money. They're not just doing it because somebody asked them to do it. But yeah, the Hot Start is, I 100% agree with you on that.
Wow. Speaking of GA airplanes and airliners, what do you personally prefer between the two, Q8? GA or airliners? What do you prefer?
I personally prefer GA aircraft. I like GA aircraft a lot more. simply because I think with the airliners, it's highly automated. So once you take off, you switch on the autopilot, and then it's pretty much, the aircraft does everything. With the GA, you have to do a lot of things manually, and I appreciate that. I like that. When I'm not streaming, I normally like to take a Cessna 152 or a 172 and, fiddle around with trimming, just battling the air and just manually fly the aircraft, do some VFR. I think it's a lot more fun. At 36,000 feet, you can't really see much on the ground either. So in terms of an experience, I know that the community wants to see the big birds. I know that they don't like GA very much, or it doesn't really entice them to come to your stream if you're doing even a review of a GA aircraft. But, when you're doing something like a 737 or an Airbus, or everybody's going to come and watch your stream because they're interested in those big birds. And I think it's got to do with our psychology as humans. When you see something so big and so heavy flying up in the air, it's something that is, that amazes us. But personally, GA aircraft all day long.
So I have to ask, I have two questions for you. They're both about balance. So first, what you just said, GA versus airliners. So how do you kind of decide how to balance that? Because you obviously have a passion for GA, but you also love airliners. I'm sure you're kind of just like us. You love aviation, period. So how do you balance when it comes to making tutorials or live streams? How do you balance what you should do? Are you just taking kind of community votes, or are you just like, all right, well, I just want to do GA today, so I'm going to do GA. So how do you kind of decide the balance between GA versus airliners?
Yeah, that's a good question. So normally, it's exactly what you said, Blue. I do run a lot of community polls to kind of see what people like to see. And normally, when I put in a GA, so I'll give like an option in X-Plane, an option in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and then some GA aircraft. Almost all the time, people pick the airliners. So I understand the community wants to see those big birds. And so when I'm tailoring content for the channel, I do take that into consideration. I make sure that I give a lot more attention to those big birds. And when I do tutorials, I will do more tutorials for the big birds than for GA aircraft. Nonetheless, when I'm doing my own casual flying, then I hardly fly the big birds. I like to fly, one of my favorites now in X-Plane is the King Air 350 by Airfoil Labs, the Airfoil Lab 172, the SR22 and SR20 Integra by TorqueSim. Those are the kind of aircraft I really like to fly, in my free time when I just want to chill and enjoy the sim. That's what I do. But the community polls is one. And if you also look at forums, so if you look at what people ask about and what they have issues with, is mainly the big birds. You don't really hear a lot of people talking about smaller aircraft. And so that gives you a sense of what the community wants, what they're looking for, and what they're using. Mm-hmm. And so, if you want to be successful in creating content, you got to do what appeals to the community, unfortunately.
I'm so glad you said that.
I have a feeling it's just that it's simple. It's our little brains. We just like more switches to flip and more complication. Even though the hot start is way more complicated than all these other planes, people still like the big birds to fly because they think it's just more challenging, And they haven't even flown a GA plane or a Cessna. I've seen people come into the simulator and the first thing you want to do is fly the Zibo. I'm like, have you even taken a Cessna out yet?
Have you flown anything? It amazes me as well. It amazes me when I hear people getting in. I get it. I completely understand. It's just like he said, the psychology behind it. But when people get in the flight sim, doesn't matter what sim they're doing, be X-Plane, P3D, Microsoft Flight Sim, they hop in the biggest plane that's available on that sim, and they take that out and they want to fly it around, and then they struggle with it because there's a lot of steps that you need to go through to get to that point. But then kind of circling back, that's where those tutorials come through, right? It's like, all right, well, I don't know how to fly a Cessna, but I want to fly the 747, and Q8 just happens to have a tutorial on how to fly this particular 747, and then they kind of get knowledge on that. But one thing that kind of amazes me as well is I'll hear on VATSIM all the time of someone who's like, all right, well, maybe they just for some reason are interested in flying a GA flight. They're used to flying on VATSIM. They probably have 500 IFR hours on VATSIM, but then they finally try to do a GA flight in VFR, and they have no idea what to say on the radio, what to do, what the procedures are. They don't understand they're not supposed to fly on the Bravos, things like that. And it's just another learning experience that you need to go through for GA, because GA is completely different. And I feel like I say this, but I feel like it doesn't have a lot of weight because I've tried this with XP and it didn't work. I was like, once you get into a GA plane in real life, you have a bigger appreciation for it. But then XP's done it twice and I don't feel like has gotten it.
maybe Q8 can help. So I've flown with a CFI, a Cessna twice, and the experience is like there's nothing to compare it to. As you said previously earlier, you said it's just the freedom of being in the air, looking out over the horizon, looking at all the landmarks that coming in for landing, appreciating the speed. But my big jet ride is just so much more impressive for some reason. I don't know if it's the scale of it, the mass of it, what is it? I don't know. If I could do 0 to a big jet, I would be like, stop streaming and go get my license right now. So, but of course it's not possible. But it's tough to say what the catch is with big airplanes. I guess it's just like you can own a dinghy boat or you can own a cruise ship, and you're like, I want a cruise ship, something like that, I guess.
Well, I think it goes back to, I think it's the natural way our brains work. Bigger is better. I mean, at airports, if you notice, for us aviation enthusiasts, I think when you're at an airport, you will always be struck by the looks of a A380 rather than, maybe a Dash 8. So if you saw a Dash 8, it's a nice plane. I've seen it in the sim. But when you see an A380, oh, wow. Look at those engines, look at that wing, and I find myself saying that myself. Though I like GA aircraft more, but I think there is something, again, with the fact that, I think the human brain, when you see an aircraft of that size flying up in the air, and you can see the contrails, for example, from those jet engines, I think your brain appreciates the progress that humans have made. Yeah. I think there is a lot of, it's very majestic to think that the human brain was able to do something like that, something that significant. And I don't think you get that might with a general aviation aircraft, like a smaller Cessna flying, with the piston engine. You don't really feel, the might of that aircraft. But for example, with a 737, with a jumbo jet, with an A380, definitely you feel that. You feel what humans have done, and you feel the might of the aircraft itself. I think that's really what it boils down to.
I think also it's a psychological thing, and I got a good example. If you're at a small little, municipal airport, and there's a Cessna in front of you, it's just kind of imagine. We haven't seen many aircraft in our life, or maybe we never seen one at all. We see a Cessna, you turn it on, like, oh wow, that sounds loud, that sounds amazing, that's really cool, right? But then a Dash 8 rolls next to it, got these massive 2 turbo prop engines, and you're like, wow, like, okay, now you're attracted to this bigger thing. But in the scale of things, right, we're at the small airport, got a little Cessna and and a bigger Dash 8, right? You're like, oh, that's amazing. But then let's take that Dash 8 to an international airport, right? Now you got a 737 next to it with these jet engines. You got this power, right? I think it's one of the things that really attracts us to bigger jumbo jets. Is not only is it a freaking marvel of engineering, but also just the power that it takes to get something like that off of the ground, and the sound of it, the loudness of it. But you see a Dash 8 next to a 737. You're attracted to the 737. You're like, how does that work? Let's take a closer look at those turbo fans, stuff like that. But then let's make it even bigger. That 737 flies to a bigger airport. Then you see a 747. has 4 engines. And you're like, oh my God, look at that. So you get what I'm trying to say. And so we've moved all the way from a Cessna up to a 7.4, and then you go to the A380. Now this is a big debate between Airbus and Boeing, but still, A380 just happens to be bigger. I personally don't think it's attractive. No offense to anybody, but when you see an A380, you have a respect and appreciation for it. Doesn't matter how you feel about Airbus, doesn't matter how you feel about how it looks. When you see it in person and how massive it is, and it just kind of makes us all feel small and like, wow, that, so I think that's, and also it also comes down to the fact that we all want what we can't have, and we want to see what we don't have access to. Right, so when it comes to small GA, you could easily pay $100, do a discovery flight, and get in a Cessna. Anybody can do that. It's that easy. You could also pay an easy $100 and get in a Spirit flight, an A320. It's that easy, right?
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
So these cheap things, we're like, oh, it's just easy, right? We can get our hands on it as easy, but the stuff that we can't get access to as easy, maybe a 7.4 or an A380 or a big jet, stuff like that. Maybe we can't get into that cockpit. Maybe we, that plane doesn't fly into our city, something like that. I feel like we want that, and because we can't have it in real life, we can't access it. It translates over to the sim and curiosity. Right? It's like I'm more curious about these bigger things because I'm less likely in real life to be able to actually fly this plane. Even if I do intend to get into aviation, it's still, it's going to be a challenge to get to these specific type of aircraft. So yeah, I think it's a lot of psychological things in play there. I think is the reason why the majority of people, at least in the flight sim, are preferring airliners over GA. And also you can even see this in, like, if you look at some of the YouTubers who are real world pilots, whether they be GA or airliner pilots. It's really interesting because I've actually noticed that there's a massive, and I mean massive, general aviation community out there. Like, it's huge. And when it comes to the airliner side, I don't really know how that works. You don't see as many YouTubers. There's not a whole lot of meetings of Oshkosh just for airliner pilots. You know what I mean? They come to the Oshkosh with all the GA pilots. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a very interesting dynamic.
Yep. Well, speaking of the airplanes and airliners, Q8 classics like the 727 or newer airplanes like the 7.3 Max. What do you look for in airplanes? A300 versus the A321. Are you a classic kind of guy, or you prefer the newer, more technology glass cockpit?
I'm more of a classic guy. I think I prefer the older classics over the newer, modern, fully computerized aircraft. And the reason, I think, being, it's when you learn what happened in the old days and how pilots, what they had to go through in order to operate an aircraft and fly from point A to point B, I think you get a lot more appreciation for the progress that has happened since then. And so for us to, the modern era, I think if you sit in a completely computerized cockpit and, you fly the aircraft, I mean, it's fun, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy it. But I think when I understand how INS works, for example, to me, that was, it's testimony for the progress that was made in aviation, in engineering, in many things. And it's good to be able to experience what, pilots have experienced in the past. I know there was a good friend of mine who is a retired 707 Boeing pilot. And he tells me that back in the days, it actually was very difficult to pull the yoke and control the aircraft. It was a job. And he said you had to have some muscles to actually be able to steer the aircraft in the air. It wasn't easy. Even the throttle quadrant, he said it took some effort to actually move it. It wasn't as smooth and automated as it is today. So I think when I sit, for example, in the Fly JSIM 727, and I can almost smell the scent of an old cockpit, it just takes me back in those years, and I start thinking yeah, I can even relate to some of my own experiences. I'm not that old, but I'm old enough, I think. And it really puts me back to those days, and I really get a lot of appreciation for what we have today. So I think for whatever reason, I prefer the classics over the modern computerized and fully automated systems. I think they're more fun. You learn a lot, and once you learn what happened in the old days, you come to the modern system, and you actually can relate to it. You can relate why, or you can even speculate why things were changed. Oh, because in the older version it used to happen this way. And I think, to me, that's just a fascination. For me, I love the classics.
What about you, Blue? I never asked you that question before.
Am I classic or modern when it comes to aircraft? I'm
Right.
more on the modern side personally. I kind of, in a sense, what Q8 said, I do like to try the older stuff to again get a sense of like aviation history, and when you come back to the modern jet, you have a better appreciation for why things are the way they are. It's also, I've always felt it's important to know how to operate things manually in case things go wrong. The modern aircraft have the backup systems of what used to be primary systems, and so knowing how to actually use that, I feel like, is important. And especially for me, I do plan to become a pilot, to go through my training, and I don't plan on using a Cessna with a G1000. I want to use a glass cockpit. Like, if I had to choose between the two, at least in the beginning of my training, I want to know how to fly with the 6-pack versus the G1000. I can do that later on, but yeah, I'm more of a modern though when it comes to airliners though.
Believe it or not, it's funny when I took those two Cessna rides, and one had a G1000 and one had similar to a 6-pack. I preferred the one with the 6-packs. It was just simpler to look at and focus on the information that I needed. I found the G1000 to be a little bit too much information for somebody who was learning. It was weird, but you said it right. I was like, wait a minute. I find myself looking at the 6-pack, simple, speed, vertical speed indicator, stuff like that was much easier to glance at than the G1000, because it was just all over the place. And, you're flying in real life and you want to glance down and up and out the window at the same time. So that's interesting.
Now, if I'm flying through a busy airspace, like, around New York City, LA, like where there's all these different airspaces, Bravos, Charlies on top of each other, I want to have some type of, device in there that helps to pick that so that I can, kind of skirt through it easier. I mean, obviously I need to know how to do it without it, but it just makes it much easier to get through that busy airspace.
Yeah. My go-to classic was the IXCG 737 Q8. Do you remember when the IXCG dropped on Mike on X-Plane? How that was a game changer for us. Oh yeah, because we never had anything in any airliner like that before. It was a step ahead.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That was my go-to there with modern. But I have to say now that I'm actually appreciating the new Boeing direction with the MAX, the 787, and the new 777X coming out. It's all same uniform cockpit, to be honest. They're following Airbus basically, and I could say that, and I don't mind it at all. Definitely don't mind it. Oh yeah.
As a matter of news, there is a 737 MAX coming out for X-Plane very soon. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying that, but yeah, the cockpit work is being worked out, and it should not be. Before long, we will have the 737 MAX for X-Plane 11, and it's going to be free.
Wow.
Nice. More the merrier.
Yeah. That's
more the merrier.
Really interesting. I have so many questions that you can't answer right now. So we're gonna leave that there.
That is true. How is it working with do you work with developers at all, or like previewing stuff, airports, airplanes? How is it working with developers in the community for you?
Look, I've done a little bit of that, and let me tell you. Let me tell you an experience I had. I'm not going to say the name of the developer, but I will tell you about the experience. Now, I'm somebody who reviews products, okay? And I remain, for the most part, I try to, suppress any bias that I have. I'm human in the end, folks, and I definitely develop biases over time. But I do my absolute best not to let those biases creep into my reviews. And for this reason, I go and purchase my own add-ons all the time. Now, there was an experience with one of the developers. He's got an aircraft that sells on the X-Plane org store, and he's asked me to help provide feedback on the aircraft. It was in very early stages of development, and I said, yeah, okay, that's fine. And I started giving them some tips on, because I know what the community wants. When I review an aircraft, I hit the points that I know matter to people. I leave everything else out. And so I started giving them some tips, and over time, I got busy with things. But he was under the impression that I should probably give his aircraft a good review because I was, part of the team, the initial team that gave, feedback on the aircraft. Now, some of my feedback was actually heeded. So I've seen the changes done to the aircraft, but when the aircraft came out, it was not up to the standard, in my view. And I state my opinions just like that. I don't embellish things. If I don't think it's good, it's not good. I'm just going to say it's not good, guys. I don't recommend it. As simple as that, even if I was part of the development team. So I think he felt a little bit bitter over that experience. And that's the last thing I want to do as as someone who likes to think that I'm an inspiration to the community. And I felt very guilty over that. And I said, all right, from this point forward, I'm not going to do any collaboration in that way with developers. I'm more than willing to, get their add-on and put it on the channel if that's what they want me to do. But my precondition always with them is, folks, just know that when you give me any add-on, I'm going to state my opinions. And it's going to be completely separate from what you think about your add-on. I know you're very proud that you've created, a brilliant add-on for X-Plane or for MSFS, but I have a responsibility towards the community to state my honest opinion, whether I think they should buy it or no. Is this worth the investment or not? And people may not agree with me, and that's perfectly okay. But my sense of responsibility towards the community is that I must be honest and tell them what I truly think, one. And two, when I'm actually doing these reviews, I have a criteria that I follow. So it's not just that, I think it's not good. That's it. No, I have a criteria. I go and look at the documentation of the aircraft. I look at the modeling, and I actually zoom in and look at very carefully at all the textures. I look at the colors. I do match the colors with what I see in real life. I bring real world footage of all the add-ons, the aircraft, and I look at them. I compare them and see how closely they match. So there's a very long process I go through before I declare my final verdict. And so I've done a few where it was more casual. I think I've done recently the Honda Jet with Marwan Gharib as a developer behind the aircraft. He's reached out and said, I want your feedback on the aircraft. And I said, fine. So it was freeware. So there isn't much for me to critique on the aircraft. It's freeware for that. So on freeware, it's a completely different ballgame. So I gave him my feedback. He actually took my feedback to heart. He's worked very hard on, putting the aircraft in a state where it's usable. And then I did a live stream to showcase it to the community. So I'm more than happy to support developers. I'm more than happy to help them with feedback. But if they ask me for a review, if it's going to be an add-on that people need to pay money for, then I'm going to state my opinions just as it is, without any embellishment, without any, and without any bias. As simple as that.
Jeez. I have a senior developer I need to send your way because he really needs some serious feedback. And
You talking about the same one I'm thinking about?
No, yeah. Look, I'm glad you said that Because the community has to know that the positions that you're put in as a reviewer, and they go, how comes you didn't get display in our this scenery? Sometimes you don't want it because you don't want to have to honestly hurt somebody's feeling, but you want to be honest because people are going to use your recommendation to buy a particular scenery or airplane, and they need to know the truth. And you don't want to give up your integrity by just giving somebody a pass when you know clearly there are issues going on with it. So I've had to turn down sceneries like, yeah, man, you need to do some more work here before you push this out to the community. So I feel happy that you said that.
I think too with reviews and live streaming, because when you live stream something, even if you're not calling it a review, you're still kind of reviewing it and you're promoting it. People will buy it just because they saw XP flying there, or just because he's there and they want to fly with you in the same scenery. Doesn't matter if it's good scenery or not. They're like, I want that scenery, I'm gonna go buy that scenery. And the thing, whenever it comes to, even for me when I'm making reviews as well, is knowing the weight you carry when making a review, because people are spending their hard-earned money on this thing, right? Some people in the community don't have jobs. They're getting money from their parents or allowance, or some of these add-ons get pretty expensive. Like, that's why like a Challenger, or a 747 from PMDG, it costs $140. That's a significant amount of money for a lot of people, and so they're watching multiple reviews trying to find out whether or not this is something that is worth their money. And it's obviously hard to say if it's worth their money because everybody sees worth differently. But if you can lay out the facts for them and show them, hey, these are the things that I like, these are the things, this is what it is, and then they can make their own decision on whether they think for themselves if it's good or not. But like that review in my opinion, has so much significance. I think about like restaurant reviews. Could be the difference between you going home, with a full stomach and sleepy and satisfied, or waking up the next morning with food poisoning. You know what I mean? Like that's that's how important reviews are. So yeah.
True. Absolutely true. How long does it take for you to put your review videos together? Of just on average, how much time do you spend doing it? As you said before, recording is so much harder than just live streaming and getting
yeah.
How long do you spend really on a normal basis?
So there, I think I've used a different way of presenting those add-ons. There was a first look video normally where I state no score and I don't give the aircraft any seal of approval and think, oh, maybe I've done it. I haven't been very consistent in what I do in the first look versus a review. But normally I spend a good, let's say, a good week looking at the aircraft, flying it. I don't do as much scenery reviews anymore, but I use them. So the sceneries I recommend, I use them in my streams and then say that this is a good scenery to have. But I spent about a week looking at the aircrafts, figuring out, all the features. I look at the documentation, see how easy it is for someone who's an average flight simmer to follow the instructions provided in the manuals. And in most cases, I look for example, I'll give you, for the documentation aspect to get the full marks, a tutorial has to be there. So the developer has to provide at least one full tutorial that helps the average flight simmer to start, operate the aircraft from cold and dark all the way to the landing. And if that is missing, I don't care how good the pilot operating handbook is, or if it's 500 pages or 1,000 pages of data in there. I mean, if somebody who buys actually spends his hard-earned money on an add-on, he better be able to use it and enjoy it. And if he has to be able to do this without referring to the Q8Pilot channel or to Blue channel or XP channel, right? He should be able to just open the manual and read for about 15 to 30 minutes and be able to start using the aircraft. I understand some aircraft are more complex than others, and you need to, there's a learning curve and you need to probably spend more time, but that's okay. As long as there's at least one full tutorial from cold and dark all the way to shut down at the gate at the destination. That is an absolute must. For example, for documentation, to get the full marks from Q8Pilot. And I've seen this, by the way, in some of the so very few add-ons have received the full marks on documentation. Most of them don't. But the way I do it is that I average all the scores. So I look at the 3D modeling, of course, the texturing, and then I look at the authenticity of the actual model in comparison to the real-world counterpart. Then I start looking at the depth of the system simulation, how accurately they are based on real-world videos. So I go and actually watch videos of real aircraft, of how they are set up. If the systems match, I look at some of the screens to see if they are modeled or not. I look at the documentation, and then, of course, I take it for a flight to see how it all is glued up together. And I give the marks based on, I have an Excel sheet, and that Excel sheet has the different criteria that I use. There's a check here, well, how good it is, and I assign them scores. And then finally, I'll have a final score, which I then add them all up, divide them by the number of items, and get the average. And that's how I declare the final score 9, 8, or 10 out of 10 or something like that. Normally, the 10 out of 10, I will tell you right now, there is a little bit of subjectivity there, because no matter what you do, you can't give everything a 10 out of 10. But I think when I get really impressed with the fidelity of an add-on, and that's when it gets to like a 9.5, 9.6. If it's above 9.5, I will push it to a 10 and give it the platinum plaque, because I think the developer really deserves the credit there for the hard work that they've done. And I don't really want to, disappoint them in everything that they've done to put this add-on out to the market. But most of the time, nothing gets the 10 out of 10. That's normally, it takes about a week to sort of, rate the aircraft or rate the add-on. And then it takes me the weekend. So normally on Friday morning is when I start recording the video. On a Saturday morning, I do all the editing using my, video editing software. And I normally schedule it for the same Saturday night to go live. That's, of course, if I'm doing a recorded video. The same process pretty much is followed for a live review, but then, I would stream it on that Saturday night at 9 p.m. Kuwait time.
Nice. I was going to say, because I think a lot of people don't realize how much work you put in. Oh, I think you just spelled it out right there, but how much work you actually put into these reviews. And I extremely respect that. And that's what leads me to my next question, which is actually a soft spot for me, because I'm passionate about this. I'm not going to say much about on the subject, but the question is, so here's the reason I haven't been doing a lot of reviews lately. For one, I can't keep up. Things have been releasing so fast that I have like this long queue of things that I would like to review. But then, and this is just, I'm just being honest with you guys, everybody in the chat, I'll see, and I can put any names out there, and no offense to any of these people, but I'll see other streamers and YouTubers post a video on day one saying, reviewing such and such plane. And obviously everybody goes and watches that, and it's, it is literally their first look. So how do you feel about first look versus review videos? And again, we're not putting anybody under the bus or calling anybody out. I'm just, for me personally, it's like I put, like, just like how you said, it takes about a week, maybe 2 weeks to really kind of completely go through the review through. You got to actually fly, you got to actually learn the plane, kind of educate yourself on the aircraft. I do a very similar thing when it comes to me doing reviews, and that's why it takes me so long. And then the editing, that's all before editing. But then you see somebody else come out and just hit record, and it's like 30 minutes long, and they're like, all right guys, first time, looking at this plane, but then they title it review, and I'm like,
yeah.
So like, what's the point?
I'll be very honest with you, Blue. I've been also guilty maybe of this sometimes where, I don't spend sufficient time and I called a review. I've maybe done it once or twice. So I am guilty of that. I've done it a few times, and it's unfair to do it for one. So I don't think it is fair to call it a review unless you've spent at least a week understanding the aircraft. A first look video is okay,
Yeah.
but I think if you look at most content creators, what they do is they want views, and they know that, oh, let me just get that add-on and let me just make this video as soon as possible, then I'll get so many views. Because if for example, Blue Games posts and XP posts, then, I'm probably not going to get as much views. So I got to take precedence here. I got to put my video as soon as possible and get as much views as possible. And I understand that, of course, for newer content creators who are looking for,
Growth,
growing their subscriber base and views. I understand it. But I think it does a lot of injustice to the developers who've worked so hard for maybe years on those add-ons, and it's just really unfair. Having said this, there are certain add-ons that are just not worth the review. So I know on my Discord channel there is a channel that asks people to give suggestions for reviews. What do you want me to review, guys? And some of them, they go and say, well, how about you review this aircraft? And I go and purchase the aircraft just to, fulfill the review. And then I say, this aircraft is really not worth the time. And if and if I put it on the channel, I'm just going to state my opinion like I normally do. And it's, the developer is going to feel so demotivated. He's probably going to hate me for it. So you know what? I'm not going to do it. I don't want to, hurt anyone's feelings. I don't want to demotivate anyone working in this community. It's very important for me to not demotivate anyone, even if it's a crappy add-on. I don't want to demotivate them. Maybe one day he will actually, get, a skill, or he's going to develop more experience and do something better. But if I put that add-on and I just completely bring it down, he's probably going to lose all interest in doing anything in the future. And I have seen this happen with I think there was an MD80. A group of guys were working on it, and they got, you remember that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, man, I would not be able to sleep at night if I did this to someone. So I'm very careful when I know the add-on is not going to cut it, or if I don't have anything good to say about it, I would just simply not review it. So anything that actually doesn't make it to the channel, it's probably not worth buying. But when there is something I think that has potential, for example, one of the aircraft was the Magnite 787. Yep. Mm-hmm. So I've criticized it a lot, and they've made a lot of progress from that point. And I've reviewed, I think, 2 versions of the aircraft. But I think that aircraft still, until this day, I believe it has potential. Is it up to the mark? Is it worth its money? I still think it's not. And I'm very honest with people. But a lot of people actually enjoyed it. And it's got some positive points. It is definitely being updated. There's a development team and a project team that works. And they receive my highest commendation for their commitment and their tenacity. But yeah, I mean, calling something a review when it's a first look is just great injustice to the person that developed the add-on.
Yeah.
More power to you guys for actually doing actual reviews of airplanes and sceneries, because I can't. I started out trying to make a video flying, and it was so tedious. My audio didn't work. I recorded the wrong section. I was like, you know what? Live stream. YouTube would record it and play it back. And that's how I cut it to streaming. So the work that you guys put in, I mean, you're talking about a minimum a week on each of these sceneries and airplanes for you to review. It's good stuff. I mean, that's why they're so popular. I don't think, actually, you are the only one now I think actually gives a rating. I don't think anybody else gives a rating here.
I used to, but I also haven't done reviews in like a year.
Right, right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you came up when there was Thomas Rasmussen and geez, he just quit simming as well. I used to watch him as
Frugal?
well. Frugal Sim, there
Oh
you go.
yeah.
Those two. So you three were the three people. So you've stuck around. You're in it, and it looks like you're not going anywhere, are you? This is it.
Yeah. So, look, I think it's when I got the invite for this stream, the first thing that came to mind, I said, I wish people like Frugal Sim, Thomas Rasmussen, Castrator were still around and still simming and still giving providing content. Matt Davis, for
Hmm.
example, I think those guys were my inspiration when I started. And I learned a lot from these guys. Mainly, maybe Matt Davis was a great inspiration to me, and he actually got me on flight simming.
Wow.
Can I
Although
cut
I've
you for
never,
a second? Hold on. Let me cut you for a
yeah,
second. I literally just showed my wife Matt Davis. She goes, "Who is that?" I'm like, "That's Matt. That's Matt Bellins. That's Matt Davis." I used to watch him, and I get a lot of my mannerisms from him because I used to watch him all the time. Anyway, go ahead. Just wanted to say that.
yeah. So Matt was the initial inspiration for me starting with flight simming. And Frugal Sim, Castrator, Thomas and I were actually very good friends. We've done a lot of collaborations together. And so I miss these people. I miss having them in in the flight sim community.
I agree.
Yeah, they leave such a void
Yeah.
in the community, and so yeah, I mean, it's hard to see them, it's hard to see those guys go. And as I've left the flight sim community for a period of 3 months or so, and
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. I
I
was saving that one.
yeah, I wasn't actually planning on coming back. I was really enjoying my time with the family. I have a family of 4 children.
Wow.
So I was really spending more time with them and having fun and going out and doing things that I like to do. But I always, in the back of my head, aviation is something I love. It's my passion. And I got a lot of comments and from people that were in the community, such as Flight Deck to Sim, V1 Simulations, Magnus, the CEO of Threshold, and probably the most touching conversation was with Magnus from Threshold, and he really talked me back into he said, just, take your time, come back, try to stay away from social media, because it was really pissing me off at the time.
Wow.
And one of the things I used to do is I was very patient with people, even people that were, you know, that they would rage personal attacks on me, on my person. I was very patient with them, and I just responded I was very calm in my responses and very cordial in my responses to them. And during that time, when I left flight simming, I know I still received comments on some of my videos, and some were really nasty comments. And
Wow.
so I found myself actually going back. So I used to get like 20 or 30 positive comments. I would not respond to any of those. And then I would go to that one bad comment and just like spill my anger on that.
Wow.
And I think I had to come to terms with that. And I had to work on that. And I did exactly what I was advised. I heeded the advice from Magnus. And I said, you know what? I'm just not going to look at any of the comment section. I'm not going to look at my Facebook, Instagram, nothing. I'm just not. I'm just going to create content. I'm going to put up the video, and whatever people want to say, let them say. And that just slowly brought me back into it. Obviously, I love the hobby, and that brought me back again. And am I not go? I mean, look. As long as I feel that I am putting up value, as long as I feel that people are learning something from the channel, I will continue to deliver content. The minute I feel that, I'm not really providing, sufficient insight or sufficient useful content, then I would quit for sure. I mean, I'm not just going to be there for the sake of, I'm not in it for the money, by the way. I'm not in it for, it's not a full-time job. It's just a hobby. And my personal reward from doing this, content on YouTube is really to help people out. If I'm successful in doing that, I will continue to do it. If I provide no or little value, in comparison to the effort, then there's no point in doing it. I hope I answered your question.
No,
Yeah,
you actually
did.
did. You did, because we
did.
know that you did take a break. And of course, let me tell you, the trolls will always be there.
Yep.
And, I actually feel bad for them now, because if that's what their life is about, poor them. You know what I mean? There's so
Yeah,
much of a world
absolutely.
outside of simming that you have that people don't even know about, right? So they think this is going to make or break you. But I think the reward for you is seeing people show up in your live streams. I've watched your lives in the background, and your audience is there. And they always come back when you go live, which is, for us, is satisfying as streamers, So I think that's a reward for you, definitely.
Absolutely.
I think a bit
Absolutely.
more encouragement going your way, and even to XP, and for anybody out there who's live streaming or making content, is that you're playing a much bigger role. I mean, yes, it's all a hobby. We all love aviation. We love flight simming. Whether you're making live streams or YouTube tutorials, we're playing a much bigger role in the aviation community, we think. And what that is that, again, when someone watches a tutorial, they're learning how to fly a plane or to do a certain thing for their flight sim. What we don't realize is that same person who's watching your tutorial on how to fly a Boeing 737 in Zibo may also be like their avenue of starting their actual aviation career, right? That they're young, maybe they're 13, 10, 12, 15, whatever, maybe even 30, right? And they're getting into aviation, and you're helping them understand what's a star, how do you read a chart, stuff like that, and that all will eventually progress and stay with them. They'll become a pilot of a 747 and still remember they watched a Q8 video way back 8 years ago on how to do this thing. And it's like we're playing much a bigger role, and the thing is, we're not always going to see as we say, the fruits of our labor, right? Like we put a lot of work in to try to help the community and try to give them value, which we, as long as, like, I feel like it's impossible for you, Q8, to not give value. Like, if long as you just do what you've been
thank
doing,
you so much.
even if you only do one video per week, like that video that you do, like your live reviews or pre-recorded reviews or live stream, like you're always, like, your goal, and I can tell is that your goal is always within that stream, within that video, to help people understand this thing that you're creating, right? Or you're using this aircraft. And so as long as you're doing that, you're adding value to people, period. Like it's never, like, unless you get out there and just start talking about some random stupid stuff, you know what I mean, which you wouldn't do because out of character for you, right? Like you're always gonna be adding value, and it doesn't matter if you were to step away from YouTube for an entire 12 months, you would still be getting comments, notifications on your phone from the past year because of the type of videos you've made, and those add-ons are still there even if you leave.
Oh, yeah. And don't forget, with you and your videos, it's like, I rather, how the promo videos come out of whatever add-on scenery or airport or plane? I just go watch your videos because you'll get to the nitty-gritty of what I really want to see, not the eye candy shots that they choose to show you in the 30-second promo. I'm like, let me just see what Q8 did say about this plane. You carry a lot. Your reviews carry a lot of weight. Not to put weight on your shoulders, but it does carry a lot of weight.
Well, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it.
And look at that. We're coming up on 2 hours already. We said 1 hour, right?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, wow.
60 minutes.
But, yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
man. But, I'm glad you went into. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll share with you a small story that I think was a very rewarding story for myself. Many years ago, there was I received an email from, I think it was a young girl. I think she was 14 or maybe 15 at the time. And the email was very brief. She said, "Can you please buy for me Active Sky for P3D?" And I was first, I was like, what? And when I replied to the email, I said, let me help you buy it. Maybe she's unable to buy it. She said, no, no, no. I went to the sim market store, but I don't have the money to buy it, and I want to become a pilot. And I was, I right then and there, I felt that this person really needed help. And so I couldn't resist, but I felt it was my own daughter. And I went because that's, the age of my daughters.
Wow.
So I went to the sim market, I got a gift certificate. I sent it over to her. I said, this is sufficient for you to go and buy Active Sky. And this was many, many years ago. And she actually sent me an email just last week, and she told me, do you remember me? My name is so-and-so. And about 5 years ago, I asked you to buy for me Active Sky for P3D. And I remembered that I've done this. I just couldn't remember the name. And she said, I just wanted to let you know that you have inspired me to become a real world pilot. And when I got P3D, the Active Sky for P3D, I was really learning how to fly aircraft in certain weather. And I'm today a certified PPL, and I'm going for my type rating for an Airbus A320. And I just wanted to say thank you. And she actually sent me a gift certificate at the sim market store for an equal amount. So she was returning the favor that I've done some 5-6 years ago. To me, I was tearful, quite honestly. I felt that she was so genuine of a person to actually remember, who has helped her 5 years ago. And she came back to return the favor to tell me that she's become a pilot. To me, that was very rewarding, guys. Really, I felt over the moon.
Wow.
And she gave me the gift certificate for the same amount, which was amazing. Now, so I wrote her back, and I wish her all the best. And this, I think, is the kind of stuff, the moments in this hobby that has really made the difference for me. It really made me going. And there are other, pilots today who become real world pilots based on, inspirations that I've given them many years ago. And for this, folks, I'm very grateful. I'm very thankful to the entire community for the support they provided, and really for those golden moments that really, I think, makes the experience just worth it.
Jeez, I got something in my eye. Sorry, hold on. Something in my eye. Wow. Now, look, that's a tremendous story, man. And I think us being, just on a bigger note, us being on the internet and having a face on the internet, even if it's a small community like the flight simming community, you never know who's watching in the background and paying attention. So do the best you can, do what you can, because you never know who you're going to inspire. Ladies and gentlemen, Q8Pilot. Jeez, wow.
The legend. That I think we need to. I don't have any more questions. That was a perfect story. That inspired me, bro. Like that. Wow.
Absolutely, Q8. No, seriously, this has been great, man. This has been absolutely great. I know it's been challenging time schedules, availability, so forth, but we absolutely appreciate you coming on the show. And it's one of these episodes where every time you're speaking, I'm just sitting back listening and not even interrupting. And I like to talk, so this is very good. Yeah, you do.
It's been my absolute pleasure. It's been really fun. You guys are great fun. Really, I really enjoyed being here. It's been great, really. Thank you so much for having me.
Definitely. Shout out to Mr. Dougal McTavish. You know who you are. That's it. Wow. What's next for you, Q8? What's coming up for you?
Well, I think what I want to focus on is the variety of content. So I do want to create content for all three sims, P3D, X-Plane, and Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think I want to spend some time and start doing the videos that the community likes the most, top 5 add-ons for this sim, for that sim. That is something I haven't done in a while. So I want to do a little bit more of that. And I also want to do shorter tutorials, shorter but maybe detailed but short tutorials on the recently released, high fidelity study level aircraft such as the Fly JSIM, the Hot Start 650. So that's something I think this is what people used to come to the channel for, and they still do. So that's, I think, where my focus is going to be in the upcoming period. I can't wait for X-Plane 12 to release, and I can't wait for the 737 MAX.
Yeah.
You teasing us with that Max, man.
All right. The more the merrier, man. That comes out, we're going to be flying that a lot as well. So the more the merrier when it comes to the Max that's coming out. Wow. That's all I got to say. Blue, what's up next for you, man?
What's up, man? Nothing, bro. I'm ready to end this show.
Yeah, you're streaming this week. You're
I
done.
am.
You're taking a
I'm
break.
planning on streaming tomorrow. I'm just coming back from a break. I took a week off for personal. I usually step back for a week towards the beginning of the year, so I did that. It was definitely worth it, and took the rest of the week off from streaming to kind of gather some things, working on some video content. But yeah, I'll be streaming tomorrow at I think it's 15 or 1600 Zulu. The timing changes and I always forget, but that's the plan. What about you, man?
That's it. I just stream, man. No videos in the works. I'm so happy because the work that you guys put in, you and Q8 put in these video work that you guys editing skills and just presentation, I can't even do. So I just stream. I'm streaming tomorrow, and I probably stream Saturday, an event early, and that's it. Off for the weekend. But it's been real. I appreciate the community. I appreciate you guys watching the Blu-XPerience. I appreciate you guys. By the way, hit the subscribe button for Q8Pilot. Q8Pilot. The number 8 PILOT on YouTube. You have to subscribe if you're not. Subscribe to Q8Pilot, please. And he also live streams as well. Watch his tutorials, watch his videos. You need anything answered in X-Plane, P3D, and Microsoft Flight Sim. Definitely check out
Also,
Q8, man.
he has a really dope website. Check out his web. I checked your website out the other day, bro. I was like, man, this is nice. So yeah, check out his
still
website.
needs work, but yeah, it's all right.
Nice. Step up the game. But that's it. As Blue always says, what do you always say, Blue?
Remember, you have 3 choices: give up, give in, or give it all. You got peace, love, and God bless you. We will see you guys next time on the Blu-XPerience, and make sure you check it out on Spotify. All 21 episodes so far will be on Spotify.
Wow.
So check it out. Can you believe 21 episodes so far? And great to have it with the legend Q8. Man, I'm just so honored, and thank you, man, again for coming out and hanging with us tonight.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you very much, Q8. See you later.
All right, guys, we out. See ya.
Nice. Wow.
Sheesh.
That was 2 hours exactly. 1:59.
Yeah, it was.
Yes, it was. Q8, very, very, very good interview, man. I loved it. Every minute of it was riveting. And
I really enjoyed every minute. I didn't feel the time, quite honestly. I was very sleepy when we started, but then very quickly I just got energized and